Hello everyone and welcome back to the Chemistry Box, your one-step chemistry guide. Today we are digging into a very important topic of biochemistry, that is carbohydrates. So today we are going to understand what are carbohydrates, how are they classified, and what are the basic functions of carbohydrates. So let's dig into the topic. First, see what are carbohydrates. Well, carbohydrates are the most abundant organic molecules that we can find in nature. Now, if we see the definition of carbohydrates, it says that carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones, or they are such compounds which can produce polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones on hydrolysis. That means carbohydrates contain many hydroxyl groups and they also contain either the aldehyde group or the ketone group. Or they may be such larger compounds which on hydrolysis can produce such kind of polyhydroxyaldehyde or ketones. Let's see what are the basic functions of carbohydrates in living organisms. Here are the basic functions of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are the most abundant dietary source of energy. That means whatever energy requirements a living organism has, most of them is provided by carbohydrates. Now, it is also acting as precursors for other organic compounds like fats or amino acids and so on. Then we have structure of cell membrane and many cellular functions. Now, carbohydrates in the form of glycoproteins and glycolipids, it helps in the formation of cellular structure or the cell membrane structure. Also, it helps in performing many cellular functions like growth, adhesion, fertilization, etc. Next, we see that the carbohydrates help in the formation of structural components of many organisms. For example, the exoskeleton of many insects is formed by carbohydrates. Also, the fiber which is contained in the plants, that is cellulose, is again carbohydrates. The last part that we have is that it serves as the storage form of energy. That means in our body, carbohydrates can be stored as glycogen into the liver, and whenever there is a demand for energy, these glycogen molecules can be again used back to produce ATP molecules in our body. So they can also serve as the storage form of energy. Now let's see the classification of carbohydrates. Here is a very simple format of classification of carbohydrates, where we have classified the carbohydrates into three different types, that is monosaccharides, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Now what are monosaccharides? Monosaccharides are the simplest form of sugar which cannot be hydrolyzed further. So they can be called as the monomers of the polymer, that is carbohydrate. So they are the basic units of carbohydrate molecule and they cannot be hydrolyzed or broken down into further carbohydrate molecules. So they are the simplest form of sugar. Now they can be classified further on the basis of two different categories. The first one is the functional group that is contained in them. If the functional group contained in the monosaccharide is an aldehyde, the substance will be called as aldose. And if the monosaccharide contains a ketonic group, then that particular carbohydrate molecule will be called as a ketose. Let's take for some example. Now here we are taking example of glucose under aldose, while we are taking the example of fructose under ketose. Simple. Aldehydic group, it is an aldose. Ketonic group, then it is a ketose. Next we move on to the other category on the basis of which the carbohydrate monosaccharides can be classified. Now here we have number of carbon atom. The number of carbon atom contained in the monosaccharide molecules makes them classified into triose, tetrose, pentose, hexose and so on. Now suppose if we have a carbohydrate molecule in which there are 3 carbon atoms, then that particular molecule will be called as triose. If we have a monosaccharide molecule in which there are 4 carbon atoms, then it will be called as tetrose. Similarly, a compound or a monosaccharide with 5 carbon atoms is a pentose and a monosaccharide with 6 carbon atoms will be a hexose. Let's see for some examples. Under triose, we are taking the example of glyceraldehyde. Similarly, under tetrose, we take the example of erythrose. For pentose sugar, we know a very common example, that is ribose. For hexose sugar, we have glucose. So, depending on the number of carbon atom contained in the monosaccharide molecule, they can be classified into these many categories. Now, we move on to the oligosaccharide. Now, oligosaccharides are those carbohydrates which can contain 2 to 10 molecules of monosaccharide. That means they can contain 2 monosaccharide together, 3 monosaccharide together, 4 and so on to 10 monosaccharide molecules. So these are smaller carbohydrate molecules which can contain 2 to 10 number of monosaccharide molecules inside them. Now on the basis of how many monosaccharide molecules are contained inside this particular molecule, they can be classified into disaccharide, trisaccharide, tetrasaccharide and so on. Let's see what are the examples for disaccharide. For disaccharide, we can take the example of sucrose, we can take maltose as well. Under trisaccharide, we can take the example of raffinose, which contains 3 monosaccharide molecules. Under tetrasaccharide, that means a substance which contains 4 monosaccharide molecules, I am taking the example of stachyose. Now we move on to the polysaccharide side. In polysaccharides, we understand that there are so many monosaccharides that these carbohydrates are a much complex molecule. So polysaccharides are such compounds which can contain a lot of monosaccharide molecule and have a complex structure. So under polysaccharides, we have two types, that is homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides. So homopolysaccharide means such compound where the same monosaccharide molecules keeps on repeating again and again and links to each other to form a complex structure. While in heteropolysaccharide, we can have more than one type of monosaccharide molecule जो एक दूसरे के साथ connect होंगे और एक complex structure तैयार करेंगे. Under homopolysaccharide, we have the example of starch, also cellulose. Under heteropolysaccharide, we can have hyaluronic acid, we can have heparin, and so on. So in this, we complete the basic classification of carbohydrate molecules. Other than this, carbohydrates are also classified into sugars and non-sugars, where the water-soluble carbohydrates are called sugar, while the water-insoluble compounds or the carbohydrates are called as non-sugar. With this, we complete the classification and basic functions of carbohydrate. Hope this video is helpful to you. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any videos. Share this video with your friends. Till then, I see you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.